Welcome to Forum at 360. I'm Jennifer Canfield. Today we're talking about the Alaska Native Sisterhood, which will be celebrating its 100th anniversary in October. The group started as an auxiliary of the Alaska Native Brotherhood, which was founded 3 years earlier in 1912. However, some women's organizations did exist previous to that, but most of them came under the umbrella of the ANS eventually. It was members of the Alaska Native Sisterhood who also organized and fundraised to establish the Filipino Community Hall, which also celebrates its 100th anniversary in October. It was also an Alaska Native Sisterhood member, Elizabeth Peratrovich, who famously admonished a territorial senator who spoke disparagingly of Alaska Natives. And she also worked tirelessly to pass Alaska's Anti-Discrimination Act of 1945, which happened 20 years before the U.S. passed their own legislation for civil rights. And some of the women here from the Alaska Native Sisterhood are here with us today on the stage and in the audience. And we're going to discuss a little bit about the history and what the Alaska Native Sisterhood is doing today. First, I want to give an opportunity to our guests to introduce themselves. Do you want to start?
My name is Selena Everson. I was born in Angoon, Alaska. My Tlingit name is Kasech. I don't know what that means, but most of our names in Tlingit mean something. I've been with the sisterhood since 1983, when I was elected Grant Secretary to the state.
My name is Frida Westman. I'm the Grand President for the Alaska Native Sisterhood. I was elected into that position in 2012 at the 100th year for the Alaska Native Brotherhood. I'm from Juneau. My mother is a life member of ANS Camp 2, which she's no longer with us. But I admired her work in Camp 2 and thought that I could also make a difference like she did. Thank you.
Kaistan yudu wasak klingit khinach gastu takhayakhat ach ishqa qaji khan yudu wasak klingit khinach sheet katakhayahu. My name is Marie Olson, and my last name is spelled with an O, and then you'll find out later on what that means. I came back home 1972 and immediately was enrolled in the Alaska Native Sisterhood Camp 2 by my Aunt Emma Olson with an E. Now you know.
Why don't we talk about how each of you got involved in the ANS? Were there your mother, your aunties, who got you involved in the organization?
I was so impressed with the women in Angoon. All of them could not speak a word of English. But when the Alaska Native Brotherhood was formed, they felt they had to do something. So the women in Wrangell, and I thank God for the women in Wrangell that had the foresight to help the brothers. And they became the Alaska Native Brotherhood helpmates by raising funds for their activities. And many of our women in Angoon, they conducted their meetings in Tlingit. And I don't know, what did they use for the word amendment? And they came up with a word.
When did you attend your first meeting?
Pardon me?
At what age did you attend your first meeting?
I was a teenager. We had Alaska Native Sisterhood, Junior A and B ANS in Angoon, and they were pretty active. We were so. It was in the 70s when I moved to Juneau after living in Seattle. I became active, and I've been active member since. So this 100th birthday is special.
When was your first meeting, or when did you first know of the ANS?
Well, I first knew of the ANS as a child. My mother, Elizabeth Westman, was a member, as I said, of ANS Camp 2. And I attended maybe some potlucks things like that, more social events. But I was aware of the activities that my mother was doing. She raised money to send delegations to Washington, D.C. during the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act negotiations. And her and others did door-to-door campaigns and bake sales, things like that. My first meeting was in maybe 1996 is when I became active with Alaska Native Sisterhood. And I did that when my children were young, and I became concerned with some issues in the school district and attempted to resolve and negotiate my way through these issues my children were facing in school, and was not able to do that on my own and wanted the help of a larger group. And I had good memories of my mother working with Alaska Native Sisterhood, and I knew it was a civil rights organization, and I looked to them, and it was the right place to go.
Marie, do you remember when you went to your first meeting or how you started in the organization?
I tried to go to school in Sitka, where my older sister, who is now gone, was attending school. I couldn't go because I wasn't old enough. And but when I came to Juneau, back to Juneau, I started school then. It was a segregated school. There was a school for natives and a school for white kids. So I come from the era of where they had segregated schools. When it came time to go to school, high school, I went to Wrangell Institute. Again, that was a school especially for Alaska Natives. But the students that came to Wrangell Institute were from all over Alaska. So to me, that was exciting. Athabascans, Eskimos, and Aleuts, and from St. Paul Island, that didn't have any high schools. They just went up to 8th grade. At that time, there was no college opportunities. The BIA did have classes that they offered to the Native people, students. I was offered secretarial school or one other class, but I wanted to go to a university and I couldn't go. So I went right back to Seattle and tried on my own to go to university. And that was extremely difficult because I couldn't afford to go to the university. It was so expensive, so I did it the hard way, one class at a time, and even then that was expensive. So what I thank A&B and ANS for is the opportunity to go to school. And the best part was when the schools were no longer segregated. That was one of the prime objects of A&B. They opened up the school system for the Alaska Natives.
The Sisterhood, alongside the Alaska Native Brotherhood, you all have worked on some very big issues: racism, land claims, subsistence, education. what stands out to you, either over your time or in the history of the entire history of the organization, as perhaps the most important thing that you have achieved?
You know, gaining the rights of citizenship by the Alaska Native Brotherhood was a big milestone. And then winning the rights for Alaska Natives to vote, 1924. Those things, accomplishments to me, stand out above a lot of things, like gaining, like Elizabeth Peratrovich Day, and one of the founding father, Peter Simpson from Sitka. I remember him as a beautiful, dignified man. And all the founding fathers that came from different areas. From Angoon, we had Eli Katanuk and Cake. They're named in here, and I won't go through the name because they'll be published. It's been published. But there were a lot of Sitkas, Klawak, Wrangell, Juneau, Sitka, Klawak, Angoon, Juneau, Angoon, Juneau. But there was, Klawak is Craig also, because they're so close together. And the honorary founding father was Andrew Wanamaker from Sitka. So Sitka seemed to be, Sitka has Camp A and B #1. So they're honored in that way. And Wrangell has ANS Camp 1?
1.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So it's an exciting year for Alaska Native Sisterhood for the 100th year. And to hear people comment, young people, we've tried all these years to attract young people. When I became active, I was in my 50s. So what are we doing wrong? I can't. And to hear young people here today, what has AMB-ANS done for us? They don't know, because we don't talk about it, the accomplishments of Alaska Native Brotherhood and Sisterhood. And so what are you guys here for today? These things are very hurtful for me to hear. Education, #1, education of our children, to try to lower the dropout rate and to help the little kindergarten in school and be there to, they see me in school and I'm called Grandma Selena in Harborview School. I've been there since 2001. So to me, that is something I love doing. And I was fortunate I could speak my language fluently. So to hear our children learning, it just makes your heart feel so good to hear them speak your language of 10,000 years. So I get very emotional when I talk about this. So I'll let Frida.
Anything that stands out to you that is really important?
Yes, foremost, the Alaska Native Sisterhood and the Alaska Native Brotherhood is a civil rights organization, protecting the civil rights for the citizens of Alaska, including all of the Alaska Native people here in our state, but it overflows to all people in our state, and that's big. We're a leader for that. We led the way for what Elizabeth Peratrovich accomplished and our state accomplished in the 1940s, 20 years ahead of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 for the entire United States. So the civil rights and equity are very important. So there are current issues today. Civil rights and equity within our state are things that I work for, and that's what I would like to focus my office on, are the civil rights of the people, and working together to accomplish equality within our state. There are issues of disproportionality with Alaska Native people being overrepresented within prisons. There's a disproportionality of children being overrepresented in custody within our state, taking custody of children, and within foster care. There's subsistence issues that are still being decided in the courts today. And we are relevant to those. We gather people together. We come from the grassroots to work towards these, resolving these issues for our state. And it helps more than us. I want to stress that. And that we are relevant today. And that we need more people within our organization. We have a lot of ceremony in our organization. Our organization is founded on Christianity. Our organization helped teach people to learn English, for instance. So there are some things that may seem like that is history now and relevant to history, but there are current issues today, and that's why I'm involved with this organization. And why I became involved is because of education and seeing firsthand and experiencing firsthand the inequities within the school district in my town, Juneau. And that they hadn't gone away from the time I graduated from public schools here until my children were within the system, that they were still there, and someone needed to do something, and that someone was me and the Alaska Native Sisterhood. Thank you.
Do any of you have concerns when you talk about having a hard time to get young people to join the organization? What do you think about when you think about the possibility of young people not continuing to join the organization and perhaps it not being there? What will happen or what could happen? What are you afraid of?
What I fear about that is that this organization will fade away, and that is not what we want. The issues are still here, and sometimes when people face oppression, they are made to feel that the issues are so insurmountable that they cannot have an effect upon them. And our organization says, look at what we have accomplished in this 100 years. We have gained citizenship for people in Alaska. We've have the right to vote. We have civil rights. We have the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. There are many accomplishments, and we have had a hand in those. And so I think that I want for people and young people to know that they can still help and make a difference. And how we do that is by working together, by coming together, by banding together within the local camps and coming together to Grand Camp. And we bring resolutions that we see local camps facing different issues in their communities. And they bring those issues to Grand Camp, and Grand Camp has more authority to take those issues where they need to go to the congressional delegation, to the governor, to the state legislature, to the mayors of the towns, to the school boards, to the city assemblies, and work on those local issues together as a Grand Camp. And that, I think, is the importance of this organization. It teaches leadership for Alaska Native people. It teaches leadership for Alaska Native women. And leadership is what we need in this state.
Marie, how has the organization changed and adapted since you've been in it?
Say that again.
How has ANS changed or adapted to the times since you've been in it?
I think they did it right away. There wasn't a way of working into it. As soon as the A and B brothers got together, they were right behind the men. And I look at the Alaska Native Brotherhood and the Alaska Native Sisterhood as a positive historical history of the Southeast Alaska Natives. It wasn't long after it was formed that William Paul was elected to the territorial legislature. And equate that with today, where we have Byron Malott, a lieutenant governor, the first lieutenant governor that is Native. And we have Native legislators that are representing all of the other different types of Natives. You can't beat that because they're all speaking in their own area. There is probably not one area where we could say it was not represented. The Alaska Natives in the state of Alaska are very well represented. The AMB and ANS were probably the beginning of the Alaska Native land claims. The AFN started the Alaska Federation of Natives, and with the settlement of the Tlingit and Haida land claims issue, the Central Council was instrumental in putting the money behind the Alaska Federation of Natives so that the land claims could continue. And I think after that, we'll say that the Natives have spoken in a positive manner about what Alaska Native needs. They need us.
Land claims is an interesting issue because it's something that
They could, maybe Alaska may not be here if it weren't for us.
So the land claims issue is really interesting, I think, because it's another thing that the ANS and the ANB kind of paved the way for. People know about ANCSA, people know about AFN, but perhaps they don't know as much about 15 years before we had ANCSA, that the Tlingit and Haida tribes and ANS and ANB were all involved in their own land claims struggle. Do you think there are other things in history that the ANS has kind of, or the ANB has paved the way to happen on a more statewide level?
Language.
How's that?
The Alaska Native languages, the sisters have been behind the school system, encouraging that language in this particular area, it would be Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian. And we have sisters that are involved right in the school system. So Selena goes to the school system to help teach the language. And Priscilla will go in there and teach some of the songs and singing and dancing. So the languages, it makes the people. Without the language, we couldn't survive. So the languages In the state of Alaska now, all the languages that we have, the sisters in the Southeast have been very responsible for getting the language taught. And nothing is more exciting than to see them sing and dance, the little children.
Very touching.
At the university level, when I first came back home, I was hoping that my language would be taught at the University of Juneau Douglas Community College, that my language would be taught. And it was offered, but it came under a title, under special topics, which means it was just going to be tried. It was disappointing at first, but today, the University of Alaska Southeast has a Alaska Native professor that speaks the language and teaches the language the way a foreign language would be taught. Now that is very exciting. And that's not enough for Southeast. There was a young man that was married to, is still married to Colleen James. That young man teaches Tlingit and Tsimshian, and somebody in Ketchikan teaches the Haida language. There's a campus in Ketchikan. Not only that, but the culture, the way they catch fish or catch seal, deer, and the original way of roasting a king salmon in a pit on the beach. There are stories. We have storytellers. I think Cecilia, I mentioned Cecilia. She was my mentor, really, to begin with. I worked with Cecilia Coons and enjoyed listening to her telling stories. The stories were used to teach the young people how to behave, how to respect the entire surroundings, the animals, the salmon, the very trees that an artist will take a tree down. He talks to the tree first, and in a respectful manner, telling the tree that the tree is going to be used to record the history. That was one of the reasons for our totem poles being carved. And that isn't the only time that our history has been used. The very names that we carry. My name is Kayistan in Tlingit. That records the history of what occurred at the time that my grandmother was born, because I carry her name. Maybe there are a few more people, areas. I could say maybe Angoon would be a place where some of the people would remember the story behind their name. It was a way of recording our history.
Rita,
And it-
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
No,
go ahead.
please.
And to me, how did they ever think of having raven and eagle to keep you from marrying your brother on the same side? They were so into it. They used to, oh, that's your brother. I was walking down the street with a handsome man in Rangoon. I got home, boy, I was read the riot act. That's your brother. You don't walk around with him like that, like your boyfriend. They were so, now it's relaxed. And when we find out, gee, they married their first cousins, and English people marry their first cousins in royalty. But to keep the two clans apart, the raven, the eagle, mattered to them so much years ago. And this day and age, a lot of our children don't know if they're eagle or raven.
A lot of things have changed.
So it's, even I've lost track of who's who anymore. But just to catch up to speed for our 100th birthday coming up, and I think I'll have our Grand President tell who will be televised from DC.
We have requested that the First Lady, Michelle Obama, give an address and be televised live at the, our 100th celebration for Alaska Native Sisterhood. Of course, that's an invitation. We have no confirmation of her appearance, but we have requested her presence, and we've done so through the our congressional delegation. So there is yet a possibility. The convention is October 7th through 10th, 2015. It'll be in Wrangell. And Wrangell is the birthplace of Alaska Native Sisterhood. So we'd like to be there for that.
Why the First Lady? What do you think she could say to the ANS that would be interesting to them?
I think that the Alaska Native Sisterhood, it is made up of strong women, women who want to work for a cause, women who want to work for their families and for the betterment of Alaska Native people. That is the charge that we have. And I think that Michelle Obama embodies that. She does that, as well as be an ambassador to other cultures. And I think that Alaska Native Sisterhood is called upon to do that as well. We are ambassadors to the Western culture for Alaska Native people. And we, I think, have something we could learn from her, and I think she might have something she could learn from us. Mm-hmm.
And how exciting to hear that the governor and lieutenant governor send asking the $10 bill to be named after Elizabeth.
That's right. There's been a campaign to have the $10 bill, the face on the $10 bill, be Elizabeth Peratrovich. And that was put forth by our governor of our state, Bill Walker. And that would certainly be a testament to the relevance of Alaska Native Sisterhood if that were to occur. I understand that's probably not going to happen, but I really love it that the governor thought that worthy to do that. And certainly
And
she is.
overcoming discrimination, the Alaska Native Brotherhood, Sisterhood.
Yes.
So Elizabeth is one of the more famous members that everybody seems to know about, but each of you probably have someone you looked up to, either growing up who was in the ANS or since you've joined. Can any of you talk about that person?
They had the convention in Rangoon, where I'm from, and I met this beautiful lady. Oh, she was so gracious. You think she was the queen of something, and her handsome husband, I was introduced to Elizabeth Peratrovich. And she was active ANS, she was Grand President. Oh, I thought, oh gosh, I think I'll join ANS or become active. That's the kind of impression she had on me. To meet her in my own hometown, where the 1927 Alaska Native Brotherhood Convention was held, where the brothers acknowledged the sisterhood as their right-hand partner.
So even then, she was very popular
Yes.
for you. Yeah. Is there anyone that you think really has led the way for you to be involved in the organization?
All the women sitting down there are all a sisterhood.
Yes.
They're all very impressive, like Connie Monroe, that one there, Martha Benzel, Carol Brady, where Wrangell, she's from Wrangell. Her mother was one of the grand presidents.
Sandy Benzel.
Mm-hmm. And the other ladies sitting there all have roots to Alaska Native Sisterhood. And even way back there, one from Wrangell. Raise your hand. She's Alaska Native Sisterhood. Our mothers and our grandmothers were all sisterhood, belonged to sisterhood at one time. So these ladies sitting here, I wish there had been more, but I just wanted to say how happy I am that they're here with their full regalia. And we are to wear a full regalia only at very important ceremonies, installation of officers, the death of someone like the exec committee member or AMB or ANS member. And the ceremony is very impressive. They all march in with their caps and kugenas. We usually have an arm through our brother, and they separate and go in front. Their program to install is so impressive. I've heard people say, wow, that Alaska Native Brotherhood and Sisterhood, what an organization. And they had to do something right to be 100 years old. Both of them stay. And hopefully, I'll say to the young people out there that they can carry ANS and AMB for another 100 years. The oldest Native organization across the United States. I think that's one of the reasons I just hope Michelle Obama, we can listen to her through, what do you call it?
Through maybe Skype.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, over the next 100 years, what should the future ANS be working on? What's important right now?
I think we'll always have a problem. And one of them, to me, it may not sound very, very well for me to say, but discrimination in the school. I see it day in and day out, even to this day. It's very subtle, but it's there, and our children feel it. So when they saw me at one time, they were coming in the school, their heads down. They saw me. They were so happy. You'd think they were looking at someone like their own mother or grandmother they hadn't seen. Their little heads lifted up and were just happy to see a Native woman sitting there as Grand President. That was in Cloak. So our children feel discrimination, no matter how subtle it is today. It may not be a popular subject, but it's something that Alaska Native Brotherhood and Sisterhood have always tried to. We treasure our children, we show them love because they've been hurt in other areas, in the workplace, in the school, anywhere, on the street. And a lot of the people I know have real bad memories of how they were treated. So Alaska Native Brotherhood and Sisterhood, to me, is a place that makes us feel welcome. We're accomplishing something. It makes me feel like I'm worth something. I'm Alaska Native Sisterhood, and an organization that'll be celebrating the 100th year next to our brothers. So I think I'd love to hear from Connie Monroe right now, if she could say something. And if Martha can, those two ladies sitting there.
Well, first I want to say congratulations to all of you for 100 years. I've been a member since 1971 and came as a new guest speaker with Edith Ibona, who was my mentor at the time for gaining my high school diploma through the GED. And so I was to speak to the ladies. And before I left, I was recruited to join. And it was really exciting for me to learn that I am not Alaska Native. And I was asked to join this very famous Alaska Native Sisterhood group. And so I certainly encourage anyone to join, including the occasional man. We had a judge that was an active member for many years as a member of ANS Camp 2. And how wonderful to have Camp 70 as a partners for doing so many things together. And we really have worked hard together. And how great to see all of you at the legislature for committee hearings on things that we have a passion about, one of which is photo ID, which we opposed. And it's been wonderful to be a member. And I learned how to cook your food.
Ask your mother if she wants to say anything.
Mom, you want to say anything?
Most of our work for the sisterhood was in Anchorage and Seattle, and wherever I'm at, if there's something fundraising by the sisterhood and brotherhood, I'd be right there helping. I've been a member now for forever, I guess. When I was a little girl in Sitka, my parents would take me to the meetings, and they'd take me to the meetings here. So when I moved to Anchorage, some of the Southeast that lived up there, we talked about organizing the sisterhood, which we did. We did a lot of work. We ran, helped people and all that. And I remember the conventions. There were times where we talked and debated issues till midnight. And then we still had a lot of fun. I really miss it. And I'd like to see the sisterhood continue to do their work. Most of us are moving slowly, don't remember a lot of things. We need new blood.
Yes, I like to be near Martha. I've always gotten strength from her strength and her wisdom as a parliamentarian. And I remember since I was a little girl that I would be taken even to the dances. And oh, they had the most beautiful, beautiful orchestras. Pete Nielsen, and I can't remember the other people, but I had 3 sisters that babysat for me all the time, but during the flu epidemic, they all passed away. So I was never left home. I was always taken everywhere. They would not leave me with a babysitter. They took me to the dances, to the socials, and I learned all the songs that they played. I was just little. And I think the songs brought me through hardships and everything because they were so, so beautiful. And I remember people being so proud of each other. The warmth you'd feel when the gatherings would come together. We would have remarks from people that were not members, that everybody just treats each other so wonderful. They're always happy to see one another. I remember when I was a little girl, I was playing around there, and this man came along. I still can't get over how beautiful that was. He looked at the old lady sitting around there, and he pointed at me, and he said, smiling away, introducing a little girl to these old people. I never forgot it. And in 1946, I began to know nothing about the ANS. I was at Wrangell Institute for 5 years. And I had Uncle Jim downtown, who's Nani. He liked my mother, Jim Bradley. I didn't know that he arranged for me to go down to the convention grand ball because they were going to have the big men, the Frank Price, Andrew Hope, and he arranged for a cab to come and get me and took me down, and I never saw anything so thrilling. I still get the chills when I think of that orchestra that started to play the Grand March, and these men went marching down the hall with their flags. I still get the chills when I think of it. It was so thoughtful to see such beauty. And it was things like this over the years that make you feel very proud of your background and who you are and the people that came out and always were so happy to be together. I remember Lizzie Basco and my mother always laughing and talking. And how beautiful the ground marches were. I still love the way they carried them out. And what an impression that kind of organization will make on you. One of the greatest organizations ever, I think. And a lot of times I wonder how we got through. We had the good leaders. Thank you.
While we're talking about some of the history here, we have some photos, some archival photos that were provided to us by the Alaska Heritage Institute. You can pull some of those up on the screen. This photo here is of an A&B ANS convention in Heidelberg. And I believe the next one is as well. Do any of you ladies recognize what's that hanging from the ceilings there? Is that just decoration? Or is that I can't quite tell.
Those are the banners, such as what we're wearing, except those have the name of the camp on the banner, and so they're called Kugena.
The number.
And it has the local camp number and the name of the town. So they're A and B Kugena and ANS Kugenas.
The next one is of another convention in Juneau. That's the next one's of Sitka. We can take a look at the next one here. So this is from, I don't actually have a year on this, but this is a Christmas card that they sent out.
That's lovely.
Well, while these last photos are coming through, why don't we all just talk a little bit about,
Okay.
oh,
It's
talk a
Esther.
little bit about what you hope for the future of the sisterhood. Immediately, what do you think it can become?
First thing I think is to attract younger people so it could go forward another 100 years. That's what I've been really thinking about since we're going to be leaving a week from today for Wrangell, is to go forward for another 100 years, and that our young people will be interested in maintaining our goals, what we do in the school, how we fight and help our brothers with their things that confront them. So we are their helpmate, and it was a big day when they welcomed sisterhood to vote alongside of them. Like, I think people disagree on dates, but I have Grant Secretariat books already printed, 1927 Angoon Convention. The brothers said the sisterhood will be voting alongside of us. So they gave us a right to vote then and be recognized as the partner.
What would you like to see the sisterhood accomplish in the near future?
Well, the continued work for equity in our state for Alaska Native people and all people, including LGBTQ, and that we, by working together, we are stronger, and that I see that there are issues that are important to all of us going forward, including education. Alaska Native Sisterhood Camp 70 goal is education, public education, and affecting equality in the Juneau School District. And I think that I would like local camps to pick a goal and work towards that goal. And that by doing that, we're going to be accomplishing as much and more for the next 100 years.
What would equality in education look like?
Where students feel welcome coming into the school, that they have the opportunities, the same for all children, that there's the resources for all children, that there's not the disproportionate number of children flagged for special education, that there are no poor schools and medium schools and rich schools, that they're all equal.
Marie, did you want to share something? We have just a few minutes left here. Did you want to share what you hope that the sisterhood can accomplish in the near future?
Well, I thank God we have another 100 years to work. And with some of the faithful members, like we had here tonight, Carol Brady gave me her card. Behind that card, Carol Brady is a life member of Juneau Camp 2. And it lists 15 accomplishments for the past 100 years. And we have, those are the things that we have accomplished. Today we have Native attorneys, we have male Native attorneys and female Native attorneys. And we have a Native governor, maybe, oops, a Native lieutenant governor, and I have to apologize to Bill Walker because what happened at this last election was amazing to me because the two different parties joined together. They were different to begin with, but now they are one. They have accomplished so much for the state of Alaska that the next 100 years we have a good running start to accomplish a lot more, just a lot more. I have to talk about my friend Kim Metcalf. She's a member of ANS Camp 2. She wrote the book, In Sisterhood, and that'll give a little bit of history of a lot of our members. And she included Walter Soboleff and Ed Coons, who's a member of Alaska Native Brotherhood Camp 2. Some of the things that we have accomplished in the past 100 years may be just a drop in the bucket, I hope, for the next 100 years. I would love to see a lot more participation in the administration for the entire state of Alaska, including all of the different natives. We have that now. We have it now, but maybe we'll have a lieutenant governor that's native and a governor that's native, probably from Point Barrow, and another one from here that's Simpson, and with all of the legislatures that are all different.
Agree with that. Thank you so much for all of you, Frida, Selena, thank you all for being here. All the ladies in the audience here, part of ANS. This has been Forum at 360. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We've been talking about the 100th anniversary of the Alaska Native Sisterhood. Thank you and have a good night.